My name is Rhodes, and I'm about to launch a podcast called The Out Entrepreneur. So it's for LGBT business owners. And so I'm really new into podcasting, but obviously not the content. I do a lot of equity and inclusion work in my own business. And so I'm here to kind of pick the brains of people who've been doing this a lot longer and strategies to monetize. And I've gone to the sponsorship one already, and the last session I went to was all around SEO and analytics. So I am definitely not the expert here. So that's some of the background as to why I wanted to talk about this today. And I guess maybe we should just go around and introduce ourselves. And for podcasters, what our podcast is about.
Go that way, so much more
Okay.
interesting.
Sure.
Oh, this one?
Clockwise is the proper way.
Unless you're south of the equator.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. If we're Australia, that would be right.
I'm Daniel. I have a smartphone app called ToneTip. It adds in audio hyperlinks into your podcast. So it's one way of monetizing it is you put the hyperlinks within your podcast, and information pops up on your screen, either related to your content, like you're talking about. You want to. It's a way of hyperlinking your content within your podcast to other information. So if you want to provide phone numbers, addresses, websites, locations, whatever you want, it just pops up on the phone. Or if you have a sponsor that's sponsoring information, then that sponsor can pop up on the app as well, based on
What's the
whatever
name of
you
the
want to
app?
put in. It's called ToneTip. ToneTip.
Tip.
It's on Android, and we're working with Apple to get it
Come
on
on
right
into
now.
the water.
So the screen that pops up looks like
So
this.
does the user need to be using ToneTip to listen to the podcast?
No, the ToneTip works in the background,
Okay.
and
But it has to be installed.
it has to be
Yeah.
installed.
Okay.
Which means it doesn't work on an Apple platform.
It works. It's right now we have it on. It does work on Apple on the what's it called? Our Test flight. Yeah, it's on Test flight. We're trying to get it from Test flight to public, and it's something that Apple hasn't done before. So it's
a process.
It's breaking new ground with them.
Well, he's just
You're next.
In my corner of eyes, he's just like looking at me. Oh, I'm Daniel as well, but I'm broke. That's why I'm here.
Are you a broke podcaster, or are you just broke?
I do tech support. I help people. It's more on the technical side.
My name's Paul. Podcasting for over a decade now. About 95% of my time is in executive podcast production, larger shows. I guess my most famous client right now is we're working with Suzanne Summers on a project, so that should be fascinating. Wrote the book that you guys were so nice to promote, and
So nice of you to write it.
I'm Kelly. I do not have a podcast, but I'm hoping to use my knowledge in email marketing and membership sites to find my way into the podcasting industry, because I am obsessed with podcasts and have been for a really long time. And so just wanting to be a part of that.
My name is Giovanni, and I love audio and podcasts, which led us to create Near Story, which is an app that allows the listener to connect with immersive stories based on their location. So, for instance, as you're driving around in the state of Oregon, you can be listening to stories that connect you to your surroundings. So we're hoping to develop a way of redistributing podcasts. We think there's a lot of information that's left on the shelf, or that is money left on the table, and we think that we can kind of curate or ruffle up the bottoms of the ocean, get that back up to the surface again, and allow people to interact with it again.
That's very cool.
So it is not on the App Store yet, but will be soon.
That's good.
is it also in the sandbox, or is it
What's that?
also in test flight, or is it?
It's on test flight
Further
right
away.
now. It'll be on iTunes soon.
Cool.
It'll be in Apple first. So we will be on your platform.
What is it called again?
Near Story, like
Near
I'm
Story.
near a story.
That is super cool.
My name's Ryan, and I'm working with Giovanni on that project, so what he said.
You're near that story.
I'm near.
Next to that story. My name is Liz, and I do not have a podcast, but I have ideas and I'm curious, so I'm just here to listen.
Pod curious.
Pod curious, yeah.
That's a show title right there.
My name is Annie. I'm one of the co-founders of the Leadership Lab with my little sister. I'm a business coach and consultant. My sister does the academic live career coaching part, the parts that I don't like to do. Let's see. I have been in podcasting for quite a while, 5 to 7 years. I helped start Earth to World and then got out of it when she decided to go to video. And then also Small Plate Radio, that was started by Doug Zanger and my ex-husband Kyle O'Brien, and obviously he's my ex-husband. I have a podcast now with my sister with the Leadership Lab that we use to promote and educate our clients. But also, I have a love for podcasting in general because I like to storytell as being Native American. And so I'm starting a new podcast called Ash Island Podcast, which is going to be myths and legends throughout the Pacific Northwest. It's going to probably be documentary style. So that's one of the reasons why I was talking, my last one was about scripts for it versus live action and getting people's thoughts about that. So yeah, that's me.
I'm Deshaun Fauntleroy. I have a new podcast, it's Sports Mastery. We interview coaches, athletes, leaders, and other motivators. I have a website around it, and I also have a product that's a workbook that I helped create over the last 4 to 5 years working with one athlete in particular. But the workbook is geared around overcoming fear, where we discuss the definition of fear, how to recognize it, how to embrace it, on up to goal setting and creating affirmations for yourself that's tailored to the middle school, high school, college athlete. The listener or the kids that I normally attract are the ones that they're normally pissed off about their playing time or something that's going on with the coach. And my goal is to help them through that without quitting, without blowing up, and to transition into the starter or the person that they want to be. Within the workbook, there's a lot of life lessons in that. My 10th episode will be released on Monday, where I was fortunate enough to interview, his name is Kramer Knudsen, and he's an assistant basketball coach at the University of Portland. And I'm at the beginning, and I'm excited about it. I look forward to getting Monday to where I'm producing 3 a week. I might need her help, so definitely need an assistant. But that's what I have going on.
My name is Sean Price, and I just started my podcast called Chasing 50. When I was 47, I started looking around, and I was at a big party and full of women. And a woman said she was invisible in her 50s, and I thought, I'm gonna kill 50. What are you talking about? Invisible, that's my license to be as free as I wanna be and give myself permission to say yes to everything. But I'm always in these amazing conversations and always the cheerleader and helping people figure out their way. And I said, I need to record these. So Chasing 50, I talked to women from 20 and beyond. And how are you going to defy age? How are you defying it now? Even though it's obvious women are not doing what they did 50 years ago, but even today, do we have to have a corporate job and have the baby and have an own pair? Is that really who you are? How are you defining that? Having that conversation from sex to breasts falling down to you men people and what we think of you guys. But now my guy friends, who are a lot are in tech and business are like, well, what about us? I said, as long as I can ask you about what you think women need to know. So we have really cool conversations. So it's brand new. I've got some that are being edited and got some interviews coming up, and super excited. So the Monetizing, I've got my ideas, and I've taken some classes from this cool place called Creative Live. I was gonna ask you, were you on that?
No, but I know most of the crew.
Love.
They're fantastic. Yeah.
Chase drummers,
Yeah,
big
yeah.
time. But anyway, and that's why I'm here today, because just listening, I've kind of been tagging behind him, just the
Get a
pieces
hobby.
of passive stalking.
Okay.
And the things you guys are sharing who are more experienced, it helps me make sure that I'm making the correct footsteps today. Just hearing that I should probably not be on SoundCloud makes me want to kiss you. So in the air, I've kissed you. We've had a little relationship.
There we go. Could I offer a framework for discussing monetization? I've been podcasting for over a decade, and I have seen more damage done by an improper understanding of the monetization opportunities than anything else. It supersedes hosting, it supersedes tech, it supersedes production, it supersedes anything. And the big thing about monetizing is this is truly new media. And the beauty of new media is that we get to define it. And the second we take new media and define it by old media's terms, there's a lot to learn from old media. Like, if we don't learn from our past, we're doomed to repeat it. So there's a lot there, but it doesn't necessarily define us. I think this is really important. So in the discussion of dialogue about monetization today, I would truly encourage everyone to speak in terms of models as opposed to truths. You know, because like one of the questions, you know, how do I get to 5,000 so I can get to Bigfoot? You know, that's a great model. It's a great model, and especially for people who don't want to do the marketing and don't want to do certain things. That's an awesome, but it's not the truth. You know, and I just want to encourage everyone that there might be ways outside of what you've been told to monetize. And then that's a message of empowerment, not a message of fear. You know, so I would just encourage that as maybe the framework that we look at the models as opposed to, well, this is the way, you know, John Lee Dumas does it, so therefore I have to do it that way.
I have a question regarding models. So, I guess in my mind, there's kind of two models.
No, there are as many models.
Many models the models I'd like to compare.
There we go.
One is those who have an audience before their podcast.
Sure.
And how they monetize it, right? It seems more done before, right? It's kind of in addition to their other platforms. The catch is the podcast alone starting and then building their audience. Due to obstacles, I think it has its difficulties. How do you suggest you kind of, what are the best ways to build an audience, I guess, when you're starting just from a podcast? How you get then once you have your audience, obviously you can build your product from there. Or do you start with a product? Obviously you start knowing who audience you want to attract, but then once you have them, then creating that product.
Great questions. Is this a good place to go? Great questions, but you're actually asking a lot more things than just that. Let me give you one concept that I teach that seems to resonate with folk, and I've actually got a poster up in there if you guys want to go look at it. It's the 4 M's of monetization. Number 1, who's your market? Mm-hmm. Who's your show for? And if your show's for everybody, your show's for nobody. I loved you. You knew exactly who your audience was. You know, middle school, high school, college guys do it. Yes, 50-year-olds. Yes, you know who's your market is number 1. Then the question is, what's the message for that market? Because people will have a very clearly defined market. My show is for people who live in Portland. Okay, it's a clearly defined market, but what's the message? There's a lot of things to talk about in Portland. You know, so you market, message. Neither one of those two require an audience. Mm-hmm. Okay, the money. How am I going to make money? You know, and general ads, specialized ads, information products. You know, cruises if everybody's over 50. You know, where's the money going to come from? Then the 4th M is what media is best for that. And I dare say there are some podcasts that should be a different media. But I'd also dare say there's some other medias that should be a podcast. You know, so now here's the thing. Take a topic, let's pick a topic, women over 50, okay? If I say the word women over 50, everybody in this room knows exactly who I'm talking about, okay? The audience is actually bigger than the talent behind that. You know, this is a show for women over 50. Nobody goes, who hosts it? You know, they go, where do I listen to it? Okay? And so, you know, the option is if you do a show that was once, you know, if it's stand-up comedy, it's about the person. Mm-hmm. You know, but if it's women over 50, it's about the topic. So the market, women over 50. The message, live a fabulous life. Now, where's the money in that?
products,
Good.
product endorsement,
Good.
being a spokesperson for like Estee Lauder or some
Good.
of the bigger brand houses, working with fashion, same thing. How are we dressing women over 50?
Yep.
And
Yep.
tech for women over 50.
Yep.
It's like the whole new world
Yep.
for people over 50.
Yeah.
How do you approach them?
And what you can get for that tight targeted demographic who has money, is the best kind of demographic. Okay, that tight targeted demographic that has money, you can get better ad rates than a generic ad insert can get. So now you don't need a spokesperson. You don't need to be famous first. You got the topic. You got the marketing option. Now, does podcast make sense? I would say yes, but I'd say omnimedia makes sense. I'd say video, audio. I'd say be absolutely everywhere.
Yes.
You know, makes sense, and that's the process. In this particular case, you don't have to have a name associated with that. You know, now.
Then you have to concentrate more on the appropriate form of marketing, I guess, or because podcasts right now, there's no direction besides what the iTunes top charts, which
Right.
isn't the only thing.
Oh, correct.
How and everybody's saying word of mouth is how
Right.
people find their podcasts.
Right. Those people who write articles for magazines, yeah. Okay, women over 50. So, JJ Virgin, do you know that name?
No.
The Virgin Diet. That really is her last name. I asked for proof before because that's just too easy. She over 50, and she lives fabulously,
Right.
and she's got a book coming out in February. She wants all the press she wants.
Right.
You know, you could leverage that audience. Here's the Fabulous Over 50 show. You know, I want you on the show because I love what you represent. I love who you are. You know, compliments gets you everywhere. So now, you know, and JJ wants to be associated as being fabulous over 50. She was the one who taught she helped Michelle Obama get her arms in the proper toning. It was one of her big claims to fame.
And I love Michelle's.
Yeah. Michelle's doing it. Michelle's pulling it
Guns
off.
are everything.
She's pulling it off. And but now, so you could hijack JJ's name. Now, if you send out a generic Dear JJ letter, please come to this website and tell me which time on Tuesday the 31st you can talk to me, you'll never get the gig. You know, but if you approach it intelligently and strategically, you can probably get JJ on the show, you know, and leverage the hell out of that. Because people are going to iTunes right now and they're typing in JJ Virgin. And when the new book comes out, they'll type in her terms. So that's how you could do it. And yes, it's word of mouth, but it's strategic word of mouth. Having JJ mention Fabulous Over 50 is much more powerful than having everybody in this room mention Fabulous Over 50. And it'd be easier, honestly, to get JJ to mention Fabulous Over 50 than to get everybody in this room to manage Fabulous Over 50. You know,
Absolutely.
Just the numbers of all this stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's where you go. I get a lot of podcasting. What do you call your book, How to Podcast? Because people go into Google, they type in how to podcast, and my book comes up, you know, or better yet, they go to Amazon, which is a search engine for people who pay for things, they type how to podcast, and my book comes up. Everybody knows what your show's about.
Right.
It's easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's brilliant. And the monetization is you know, and I'm gutsy this way. Here, my presentation would be, we will own this space in 5 years.
Yes.
And the best marketing dollars you can ever buy will be to be associated with the first season of this show.
That's good.
How would you like to be the season 1 sponsor of this show? And you will get so much more CPM than any traditional ad insert could ever be.
Right.
You know, and that's where it gets, you know, and maybe it's just somebody co-promotes you or co-markets you or whatnot, but that's how you do it. You know, you build the opportunity. You know, there's shows right now that sold 5,000 downloads of episode 1, and then they got huge, and there's 100,000 downloads, but it's still associated with that old client. The client's still getting the free ads, and that's what they hope they bought. But when now you own it, and since you're a show about owning it, I think if you went in owning it, that would be, you know, true to form. So if you don't have the list, you can hijack the topic, you can hijack the market, you can hijack the industry, you can hijack. Somebody in here wanted to be the #1 educational podcast for the VR world. what right does he have to be in? Well, he's the first one, so he is the number one, podcast. So you do that, and then you approach, Morning Northwest, and say, this is the show that does this, and you want me on to talk about how women over 50 can get educated, and they don't know what questions to ask, and if you just present yourself well, and don't do it Monday morning when they're being screamed at, do it Tuesday.
Right.
All the old, be nice to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've way monopolized too much, but
No, that's
I think the
awesome.
model is the model is here. The opportunity here is to think a little bit bigger, because if the only way you were going to make money is traditional ad inserts, I don't know if you'd make it yet.
So what I first thought of, so I have a YouTube, Instagram, and a blog. So it's kind of like hitting it all sides. So YouTube is, hey, good morning, you guys you're tuning in, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the podcast. So me and this sexy gentleman are going to be on the podcast. So here's what we're talking about, and here's what we're drinking. So today we're drinking cappuccino lattes. I'm going to show you how to make it. But if you don't go to the podcast, you're not going to learn all the juicy tidbits. So you go to the podcast and get that part. I can talk about whatever particular brand I'm trying to reach out and create a relationship with. So on my blog, you get the static picture of us both and the takeaway. So there's lots and lots of, what's the word? Come on, people. Links. So a lot of the links are there. So people start seeing, hey, this person's talking about me. Who's this person? Why are we getting all these hits on Mondays from this particular lady? And on Instagram, establishing who I am as a motivational, get off your ass and do it. Like on Mondays, I have one of those little boards that light up, and I put Monday, and next Monday is going to say, bring donuts. And it's, you got to be the cool kid in the office. You're not working on the best project. No one knows who your name is. But if you bring donuts, trust and believe you'll be at the next meeting. So when you go to my Instagram, you're going to see that I'm a purveyor of promoting women, promoting you on the YouTube. And all those things point back to the hyperlink on the podcast. That's why I thought.
Can I?
Yes, and yes. Yes, please.
If they are there on YouTube,
Yes.
why are you sending them someplace else?
Well, that's a good point. Never asked that question myself. Never asked that question myself.
Now, I'm here with Sexy Rhodes again. Sexy Rhodes, that was my favorite Sting album, I think. Was it?
Really?
Yeah. Thanks. That was a previous lunch joke. Today we're talking about this, and look at this guy. This is all by video.
Gotcha.
Okay, now, blah, 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 blah. 10 minutes into it, hey, by the way, watch me, screen time, thank you. I know there's only so many hours a day you're in front of a screen.
Right.
Let me tell you something. We also do this as an audio podcast. Now, for those of you who know what a podcast is, that's great. For those of you who don't, look, you have a smartphone. And by the way, that's your demographic. You have a smartphone. I can set it up so that every time we have a new episode, it goes to your smartphone. And you don't have to watch it on YouTube. Please watch it on YouTube if you want to, but I want to meet you where you are. And you spend a lot of time in the car, you spend a lot of time doing this, you spend a lot of time doing that, so get me at here.
Right.
Now, Instagram's even sexier, because Instagram, you can do a minute of video on Instagram.
Yes.
And you go, man, I wish I could put more than a minute on Instagram, but I can't. So meet Sexy Rhodes, and you can either catch him at YouTube if you're visual, and for a guy like this, YouTube, or if you want to listen to the car, go to the podcast, Sean App.
Right.
That's your minute.
Right.
So now you become omnimedia. And the thing is, it's no longer, now Sean and Fabulous 50 is the media sensation, not the platform.
You're going to make me change my name to Fabulous 50.
Well,
Chasing 50. But
Chasing
he
50.
plugged Fabulous 50, right?
Yeah.
Chasing 50. But the thing is, like
years.
if I say a term, if I say, Lady Gaga,
Right.
okay? Lady Gaga is YouTube. Lady Gaga is iTunes Music.
Right.
Lady Gaga is podcast. Lady Gaga is Twitter. Lady Gaga is Instagram. Lady Gaga is
right.
all these things.
Right.
And the brand should be bigger than the platform.
Gotcha. Right.
And then you get smart. Now, you had mentioned that you had a client who wanted to take some old videos and make them a podcast. And unfortunately, some videos would work that way, some wouldn't.
Yeah, it
So
would.
what you start doing in production is you go, how do I do this in such a way that it also works on audio?
Absolutely. And there's some YouTubers doing it. Yeah,
And
which
so
is
that's how
brilliant.
you develop the show. But then it's wherever the hell they are, is where you
Right.
are. Now, when the message is, I know you like this, and I know watching this on your TV set, there's 3 hours a day, and let's face it, we all got Desperate Housewives to watch or whatever they're watching these days. I guess it's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or whatever that show is. Take me in the car. Be of service to your audience.
I like that.
Take me to the gym. Take me on your run. Like whatever makes sense. Now you become on the media. And now you become, so much bigger than that. And maybe for people who don't have time for media, maybe you get these things transcribed and you're a monthly Kindle book.
Right.
Or you're that kind of stuff. You'd be everywhere, and all the good ones are.
You're right.
All the good ones are everywhere.
The video production, being able to podcast, because I listen to Creative Live.
Right.
I don't
Creative
watch
Live
it.
is everywhere.
I
Yeah.
stick it in my ear and I can listen to the show because the way they produce it, you don't have to look at the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
be everywhere.
Be everywhere, I like that.
And that's you everywhere now.
Take me with you.
Yeah.
That's so
With
sexy.
the transcription as well, like you turn it into a summary really easily, and that helps with your SEO too.
Yeah.
So it gives more to add to your website. And some people, they just want to look at the quick,
Right.
points. Anyways.
That's what I thought I would do on the blog.
Mm,
Do the
yeah.
takeaways, static picture, and then the takeaways and hyperlinks. Like here's how you
But
do
also
it.
put the takeaways at Amazon. You realize Google is a search engine for people who want free information. Amazon is a search engine for people who are willing to pay for information. Which audience do you want? And by the way, here's the funny thing: there's less competition in Amazon.
How do I? Tell me about the Amazon component.
Amazon, you're familiar with them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have them pay. Yes.
Yeah. Get a book of your transcripts. Fiverr, Fiverr.com.
I love them.
We'll take content, they'll make a Kindle book for you. Fiverr will make a Kindle cover for you. So,
Yes.
and Fiverr will give you an editor who will don't make the transcripts just raw, those never works. Have somebody edit them and make them comprehensible to humans. But for
Pause
50,
there for a second. This is really helpful. So Fiverr would just make a raw transcript and then you get a second person to edit it? Or
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that process?
Yeah, I would actually do, there's a company called Rev. There's a company called Rev, REV.com. Rev is my favorite transcript service right now. Rev is $1 a minute. And the cool thing is you can actually put a credit card on file and you can actually have a Dropbox folder. You just drop files in there, they transcribe and shoot them back to you. You don't have to sign up and upload and give permission and type in your credit
I
card.
want to keep drilling down. So you just go straight to Rev, or you'd go to Fiverr and then.
So I would go to Rev to get my transcript. I would go to Rev once, set up a folder that every time I want something transcribed, that's all automated. So I do that once. And then at Rev, I would find someone who does editing. Find somebody with good reviews. Fiverr, sorry. At Fiverr, somebody who does editing. Find good reviews, who's done a lot, and say, here's what you do. You just tease them. You just go, okay,
Right.
here's this. You edit this well. You got a job.
All right, so I just want to be really quick.
Yeah, no.
You go to Rev first, do the
To get the transcript, yeah.
and then
Yes.
go to Fiverr for the edit.
Go for the edit, go for the Kindle layout, and go for the cover. All at Fiverr. And just be smart.
Oh, wow.
Just be smart. Hire somebody who's done it before. Nobody needs to be anybody's guinea pig.
You said the Kindle layout, and you said the cover.
Kindle layout and the cover.
And the Rev, the file is the audio file. You're dropping for someone else to do.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Oh, Rev is crazy.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And now this is not a 47 million Americans drive in a car to work by themselves for a 30-minute commute. All you have to do is be better than drive time. Everybody in this room is better than drive time. That wasn't complicated. That's all you have to do to beat them. It is the easiest consumption paradigm in the world. YouTube, you're fighting with everybody else. Amazon,
Right.
you're fighting with everybody else. Podcasting still wins, and I bet you everybody feeds. But here's the thing. If everything feeds to a YouTube channel that takes off, go YouTube. I predict good money that everything will lead to a podcast channel that takes off. But just go with whatever works. As cool as the podcast Unconference is, if some other path makes more sense to you, go that other path. I don't think anybody, even our organizer, would disagree, right? Exactly. But podcast is just podcast. You can't get this morning I got in the car. I'm like, what do I want to listen to on the way to the Unconference? Click. Nothing easier than that.
And to add to that, cars are already getting switched over to where
Oh, yeah.
you pick up a podcast the same way you pick up sat radio, AM.
And easier now.
And if they wind up being driverless, auto drive,
Yep.
on top of that, think
Yep.
about the extra commuting time
Yep.
that you're going to have to do with where people can really listen to a podcast. And in addition to exercising, which is the other activity.
Yep.
So radio on demand.
Dumb luck, I got into a Tesla, and I'm just a nerd, and I was just playing with the control panel, and it was easier to find a podcast than it was a radio station. which really made me happy. That's cool, because now I tell my clients, you're on the Tesla now. How'd you do that? You're amazing! TuneIn.com is the directory. TuneIn is the backend for Tesla, and TuneIn is the backend for Alexa. So if you're in TuneIn, you're in both.
TuneIn doesn't host, right? It's just
Nope,
direct.
there's a directory. But now you too can charge a client to put them in the Tesla. And then I just say, send me one, but that hasn't worked yet. But anyway, the larger issue here, now you're coming in with a, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're coming in with a much larger plan and thought process here that I want to make some great content.
Yes.
You have these bits and these pieces that come together. So this is the model that makes sense to you. Let's go to some other models.
Or near story.
Near story. This is a massive play. The only way this works is just massive. But then local restaurant. Somebody's walking around town, local restaurant wants a review because people are going to walk by and get the reviews. So it's a massive play. Probably a liquidation event would probably be it. Probably rolled into something. And that's a big game. So whatever ads you can get for that is probably the focus at this point, or maybe even not. Someone who's just doing straight content. I just want to do straight content. I want to get some ads inserted. Talk to the Bigfoot guys. You have a history of making info products. That's where the money is. That's where the crazy money is. And so just don't ever think about ads.
Yeah, no.
And
the jump chains. Like
and then sell, sell information products. But just because here's the funny thing: if your audience spends a lot of money on something, and you can direct part of that's exciting, and that's really, really cool, and that's just better than traditional monetization. And I have monopolized this conversation way too much. So, what else? What are you guys seeing in ads? How's that going? What does that free up people to do?
Us?
Yeah.
Just barely gotten started with
Okay.
making some money. And it's been special industry, cannabis industry of Oregon, and people who are willing to try something brand new. We tried to take your approach initially. We're approaching, there's a zillion podcasts, I even say they call them podcasts, but we were approaching from a financial and industry point of view, and Oregon, because everybody's looking at Oregon right now. Is Oregon going to get it right? Are they going to be the first place, and not just U.S., I mean Netherlands, Israel, all these foreign countries too, they're all watching us. So this is the cheapest advertising you've ever gotten, but still, we went out and gave everybody a huge discount so we could kind of hold our price, but we had to discount a bunch to get some people on board. So we'll launch the entire series, 12/2, at a launch party, and then hopefully we'll get this out into the community. If we get a bunch of downloads, then maybe we can keep our price point, which, in case you're interested, you could have a sponsorship for $20,000, which is a 13-week series, 3 drop-ins, beginning, mid-roll, or 3 advertisers at $10,000 each. And we took 3 advertisers and $10,000 minus a huge discount. So maybe next time we'll get 3 advertisers at $10K each. I don't know. So that's our first foray. And that's how we.
But even what you did.
Pretty traditional.
Well, no, very
Yes,
very
it is.
untraditional. Well, no, because the tradition is CPM. The tradition is how much per thousand downloads, and what you're doing is you're saying this is the beginning of something big. So yeah, you're rolling the dice, but odds are pretty good on this one, And so you're doing a very, very, very different model than the traditional CPM insert. Although it's ads, a traditional idea, it's a different model for it, which I applaud you for. It's a smart move.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can only imagine your launch party, but
Well, can't smoke inside the building, so we'll have local craft beer and local craft cider. That's the way they do it at these retail
Right.
establishments.
There'll be
You don't
infused
touch-
elements, I'm
yeah,
sure.
don't touch product.
Yes.
Uh-huh. No, absolutely.
I'm willing to donate my living room for that purpose.
Everybody would, trust me. And we're taking a new approach too. We're meeting with one of the local publications to do a podcast series that's, hits their target audience. A couple people in the other session I told them to. And so we'd be using their salespeople, because they've got a sales force that's out there selling print and digital ads. Okay, we're going to add podcast to this, so it's incremental, and we'll take the podcast approach. An ad in a podcast lives forever, because people pick that up 5 years from now, still get your name. That print ad you bought next month or next week or whenever that's gone, people are gonna throw it in the garbage. So we'll hit that with them. We'll put the podcast on their website so that their audience can when they go to the website, they'll see the digital advertising, they'll see the podcast. And that's a way to not have to have our own sales force. That's a way to partner with somebody and a way to add on another logical add-on to a group of other mediums. Like I also mentioned, then when you get partners in there, that means you're cutting up the pie into more pieces. Is there going to be enough left for you at the end of the day? And that's what we're going to find out.
Let me give you two other models, because I think if you walk away here realizing that not all the models, like it doesn't fall into one thing, like you'll invent your own. I'm not saying pick one, I'm just saying realize there's a lot of them. A friend of mine, podcasting pops up, and he wants to write off his wine habit. And so he gets a oak table, 4 microphones, and he and his buddies every Saturday they do grape radio. And they take 4 episodes where they talk about their favorite wine. And you can always tell where they're at in the season by how much laughing there is on the episode. Strange things started to happen. Oh, I'm sorry you're not Grape Radio. I wish you were Grape TV, because we could pay to fly you to France to cover the Beaujolais Nouveau Festival. No, we're Grape TV too. But it got to the point where they've all either quit their day jobs to work for it or living off the money from it. But I think perhaps the funniest thing is if you go to the homepage of Grape Radio, down the bottom right-hand corner, there's basically it says, look, if you're going to send us a sample, a couple things. A, doesn't guarantee we're going to review it. B, doesn't mean that if we review it, we're going to give it a good review. So C, only send the good stuff. And this guy every day, UPS, drives up cases of the good stuff.
Wow.
Every time I visit him, he's like, did you bring a car? Did you bring a truck? What can I send you home with? And absolutely fantastic model. Another buddy of mine loves Hollywood, and he just wanted to get, all he wanted to do was get on the screeners list. It was just a thing he wanted to do. He just wanted to get on the screeners list. So he did a show called Real Reviews, REEL Reviews, and he reviewed movies. After about 103 episodes, he got on the screeners list. And then he realized that's all I wanted, and he stopped doing the show, and he's still on the screeners list, because once you're on that list, you never get off. And so maybe that's the model. Portland, if you just want to see plays in this town, you start doing a podcast about plays, and eventually you'll get invited to come see opening night and that type of thing. Like there are a lot of really, really, really interesting models, but the big game is what do you want? And I think that's sports. What's the market? What's the message? What's the money? And what's the media? And I think if you can answer those 4 questions, you can take any path you want to. And then it's just math. If my audience is 100,000, I'll take 40 CPM. If my audience is 10, I'm not going to take 40 CPM. How are you going to make money, Daniel? You're going to sell the app. What's the model for Tone Tip? App's free.
The app is free.
So people pay to license. People pay to license the tech, or
advertisers pay a monthly fee, and then if it goes above a certain CPM, then they end up paying more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an audio embedded message, right? Like your message is embedded in audio, like the RDS.
No, the information. But you want to see a demo?
I mean,
I have
don't want to go.
I have a
off track
43-second demo. I can just show that if you like.
well, the big thing, the audio, it makes a noise, triggers the device that gives a marketing ad. Or Truth Advice gives whatever material
It gives
the noise
a
triggers.
customer engagement.
Yeah.
So information pops up on the screen like this. There's a headline, an image, and 3 links, and the 3 links are from a user perspective. The 3 links are it gives you additional information that you can link to. From a producer perspective, you know some of the stuff that you're talking about where it's missing. You know how many people have listened to the app or have listened to your podcast, at what point they listen to it. If you put it in 3 different spots in the podcast, you know they listen at the beginning, the middle, at the end. You know where they are when they listen. You know what type of device they were on when they listened. So you know how many they are. With analytics, you know who they are, where they are, when they listen, and then if they touch one of the buttons on there, you know how they engage. So you have engagement data as well. So if you're trying to sell a product and you have a buy now button on there, and you could have A/B testing where you end up putting a message out and you go, okay, I had 1,000 people listening and 50 people bought now. And I had this other one run, same kind of message, but maybe you told the story in a different way. You've got 70 people responding out of 1,000. You go, well, that's 7%, so I'll drop the 5%, and I'll run the 7% one. And then you can look at demographics as well, of course, where they are geographically, what times they were listening, and all that kind of data that's available in the from like Facebook and YouTube and those other ones. All that data comes in from the smartphone. So you have rich analytics that comes in with the app. And for the listeners, they end up, if you're telling stories, like we can go ahead and link in with Near Story if you have a YouTube video, or if you have some other media, and you can link in customers, or you can link in advertisers, or additional information if you want to pull in more information about that.
So it's like Nielsen.
Nielsen is
Nielsen tracks only, doesn't give
tracks
the
only.
opportunity.
It doesn't measure engagement. Nielsen, you can have a TV playing, and it just knows that the TV is playing. You don't know if the customer is really listening and if they're engaging. They don't measure engagement, and they don't provide anything for the customers. They don't. If they hear a phone number or a website or an address, that's what you have to type in the phone number. You have to type in the address. With this, it's awesome because right there you've got phone numbers, websites, and addresses. So if I want to call Kira Morgan, I can just touch this button and there's her phone number. So I don't have to write down phone numbers anymore. If you have a location, how many times do you hear like an address, or this address, or this address, or this phone number? They're mentioned again and again and again, hoping that people remember it. Well, they don't. And you're going to rewind and write it down? Well, you don't have to rewind and write it down. It just shows up.
So in the monetization space, what brought you to this room? What, just want to find the opportunities? Is somebody trying to, what's the most exciting thing about monetization? Other than cashing checks.
If it's something that you love, then it's not making money now. The monetization lets you do what you love to do, and then you're making money.
So the great American dream of pursue your passions and the profits follow.
Yeah, live the dream.
Well, I guess it's the best part is people who are paying or who are donating. The money that you're taking actually means something, rather than just because you want people to actually enjoy your product. I think that's the most important thing to me, at least, is that they pay for something and it actually means something.
So somebody invests in your show through maybe the purchase of an info product or a sponsorship, Patreon type of situation, then it's a loud vote for who you are because they're not just consuming, but they're listening with their pocketbook.
Yeah. They're getting something out of it that I intend to give them, that I'm trying to sell, rather than just a blanket idea of just having. I don't know. Maybe it's one of the same things.
Well, it's
me.
I mean, who wants to have real value and real impact? We all do. That's the.
So I have a question, and am I hearing that the podcast is really a side product, not the main product of your business?
It can be the main product.
Well, that's my next question. Can podcasts really generate good income for you?
Absolutely, yes.
And how do you do that?
A lot of different options. You know, I mean, it's everything from a lot of downloads and a little bit of money per download, or a few downloads and a lot of money per download. You know, it's basically some iteration of that. Traditional ads will only allow you, you know, traditional ads by definition of tradition will only exist within a certain space, and so you have to kind of play with that. But I mean, if you can get, you know, if you can get one person to give you $100,000 a year, you know, you don't need any other transaction. You're good to go. But you know, you're not going to get a company to pay you $100,000 to put one ad up.
So my other question is, what is a podcast out there that is so successful that has so many downloads that the author of that podcast is, you know, living off his or her podcast?
Well,
Mark Maron, Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla,
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss, Michael Hyatt, maybe.
well, he's living well.
He is living well, but
Yeah.
I know he
But just
charges
from the-
like $500 an hour for a coaching session with them.
Right.
But that's not, I'm not talking about their other products. I'm talking about the podcast itself.
No.
They just
Yeah.
only do.
Yeah, Mark
they
Maron
just
does
do
a podcast himself. I mean, he does just stand-up comedy, but
But-
the reason people go to his shows is because
Yeah, you want to be careful there. I mean, he's
Yeah.
making Mark's making bank from his podcast, but because of his podcast, he can also sell out stages now for his stand-up. He can also charge $30,000, and that's what he's charging for a keynote.
Yeah.
You know, and he can also get his show on IFC, and he can also do a number of other things. So is he making a living from his podcast? Yes. He's just making 8 or 9 livings from all the other things that come from that podcast as well. You know, a lot of people don't know this. Jay Leno, during his entire career with The Tonight Show, never lived off of his Tonight Show money. What he wanted to do was he wanted to stay fresh in comedy, so he would only live off of his stand-up money. And now he's enjoying The Tonight Show money a lot, you know, and he deserves to. So the thing is can you live just off the podcast? Yes. The question is, do you want to just live off the podcast? You know, a lot of them have found no. Tim Ferriss is doing really, really, really well. Tim Ferriss is about to launch a book that's going to sell a crap load of copies. That's going to make him more money than the podcast is.
But he started off as an author first.
Yeah,
His
he's-
podcast was
yeah.
kind of a lark saying, do 10, see what happens, and then
Yeah.
it just exploded.
Yeah.
He went, oh,
Yeah.
okay, here's one more avenue to make
Yeah,
more money.
exactly.
which I don't like his podcast at all, but I like his books.
See, I like
Love his podcast.
I don't
love
like it at all.
Love his
It's
show.
Way too.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because you have like, everybody's talking
I
about
do.
startup, you know, and it's funny because in episode, whatever it was, he goes, well, good news is 1.4 million in advertising. Bad news is 1.5 million in expenses. You know? So,
The gentleman that influenced me, most of you, probably everybody in here has probably never heard of him, but we're from the same background in terms of sports performance training. His difference is that he played for a couple of years with the New Orleans Saints in the NFL before he blew out his shoulder. When he first started training, I always used to tell him you have to market that shield of the NFL, and that's going to take you somewhere. Doesn't matter all the fancy certifications in education. And we have like the same mentors, and like he went one way with the information, and I went the other way. Well, he launched his podcast first, and he's been up for a year. I think over 100,000 downloads now. But so he would train athletes, but he was also a fireman. So he got to the point to where he gave up the fireman's gig of like $65,000, $70,000 a year, and he was like, I just work from home now. I enjoy this. The training thing is cool, but I like doing the mental and psychological work where he has his books, he has his online courses, and he has a wife and 4 kids, and his wife is a stay-at-home mom, and he's like, some months are tougher than others, but this is what I love to do. And then it's like you said, the guy, like, to talk to this guy is $300 for a coaching call. And I know this guy, and I saw him go from 0 to 60, you know, in a progression. You know, so it was a local person that made me a believer, that helped me with the steps and, you know, convincing me, like, this is how this could work. And I actually did my first interview. His site is I'mNotYou.com. It's just a sports motivation site. But you can do it. I feel like I'm at the beginning, like I love it. You know, I don't know where it's going to take me, but I know it's going to take me somewhere good. You know.
Also, I think it's really cool the different types of models that you can use and how you can manipulate the models to fit what you're doing and where you're going, where you're moving forward. I think that's what's so exciting. That's what I geek out about. So it's very interesting to hear about everybody's different models and how they're getting to point A to B.
I've got an answer and a question. Answer the question you asked about 8 minutes ago on what interests us about the monetization question. I'll answer it, which might trigger a response or not, which I work for a nonprofit media platform where we're trying to figure out how to support creators. The question I've got, which might or might not be related to that directly, is any other favorite models, favorite examples of ways that people have done ad placement, who they've gone to, and as specific as possible, right? Who they've gone to and when. Maybe that was some of what was covered in the very first few minutes of this discussion, so don't feel you need to repeat for me. But either for the very beginner or for the person who's moved along, right? Like the wine example is interesting, right? Like people I'm working with aren't Mark Maron, right? They're not starting kind of famous and then becoming more famous, right? They're people who are a little bit more like the wine example, who have a passion, who might be good at communicating about that passion with other people who share it. Any other examples of very specifics of how people go about the ad placement?
So you're a nonprofit trying.
The answer is my answer. The question could be independent. The question I would hope would be for the good of the room, not for the good of me, right? Just examples you have of people who have done ad placement smartly, like who they've gone to, what they charged, what they did in the run-up, what they did afterwards, how they scaled up later, right?
But is the specific question ad placement smartly, or is the specific question smart revenue options?
Either one.
Okay.
But no, actually, if you have another specific thing, revenue options, I hear it, but I'm specifically talking about ad placement for podcasts. Like I get the build a platform of content, go to where your audience is, build your audience, and then do omni-media for your audience. I heard that part, and that's useful. It is also useful to understand, even just very specifically, for the person who's starting with audio, right? They're not like also marketing their show, their training, their YouTube site, whatever, but who's starting with audio, the smartest thing they do. One thing I heard, for instance, that was useful was, and also from the pothead and back, thank you very much, sir, for your work. Go to the cannabis industry and say, hey, and the thing you said, like, hey, own the first season. I don't have any downloads yet, but I'm gonna. Right. Get in early. Also sounds like what Google does. But if you, but there might be other tips like that.
Mignon Fogarty, Grammar Girl. Anybody know?
Love Grammar Girl.
Okay. Do you know her story?
Nope.
Grammar Girl's first podcast, she was a science editor, science magazine editor. She loves science. She does a science podcast. And it kills her. It's a lot of work doing a science podcast, especially when you're an editor and you got to get everything right. So she does a couple episodes of that, she kills it. She does Grammar Girl because she's an editor. She knows grammar. She just does one episode on one topic.
Well, or kills it, she stops it.
She stops it because it was killing her. It was sucking her life. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So she does 5 episodes of a 5-minute-ish show. She gets a book contract. 2 episodes later, she gets a call from Oprah's team. It says, we heard that there's this person called Grammar Girl, and Oprah said something, and people emailed in and said she needs to talk to Grammar Girl, or do you know where Grammar Girl is? Can we get her on the show? Grammar Girl's me. I can come. Can you come Monday? Calls her book publisher and says, you know that thing where we get the book and then we go on Oprah? Yeah, well, it's going to be a twist. I'm going to be on Oprah on Monday. And by the way, I got to get makeup and dress, and we're not going to talk until I'm done. So she goes on Oprah. She calls her agent. She says, congrats. You're the #1 book at Amazon, or the #1 book at iTunes. How am I the #1 book at iTunes? We took 8 episodes of your show, we chopped it up into an audio book, we put it at iTunes. You're the #1 book at iTunes. She was there for 3 months. People pay for stuff they can get for free. Happens all the time. You watch a costume drama on PBS. At the end of the 2 hours, they go, if you want to buy a DVD, call this number, and people do. So she became Omnimedia on accident. And it's funny because if you go to her Wikipedia page, it says, her book came out, her first audiobook came out on this day, and then on this day she was on Oprah. And you notice it's 2 days later because the editor just went in and got this done. So here's a person who became Omnimedia by accident, and they never mentioned it. It was just Grammar Girl from the internet. Oprah didn't even say the word podcast, and you can look this thing up on YouTube. It's brilliant. It's just like a 5-minute clip. And that's another model. And then now she has the Quick and Dirty Network, and they have all these books, and they have audiobooks and print books and all that kind of stuff. But she kind of stumbled into it because she was right place, right time. So I think a podcast that services, right now, if there was a podcast about urban unrest, you can sell yourself to any news channel on tonight's news here in Portland. Wouldn't necessarily create one for that purpose, but there's ways to leverage the news. There's a way to leverage what's going on. If you have the number one podcast about a certain topic that nobody else has a podcast on, you have the number one topic. You can get yourself on the news. You can get yourself interviewed. You can do things like that.
Let me try a question a different way. Let's say you have a little show, and you haven't tried to market it. You haven't really built a digital audience. You're trying to think about it. What would be your first, second, and third move?
Local media.
Sure.
Regional media. National media.
Let's take a local example. Let's do it with a local and a national.
Well, AM Northwest.
Yeah, no, I'm getting, okay.
Oregonian.
So that's a marketing answer. That's a marketing answer.
No,
You're trying to place the ad.
No, not placing ads, but getting PR. So then you can go after something that's local.
And then, now, you get on AM Northwest.
Which now you have to pay for.
Now you got a clip.
Mm-hmm.
That's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Now you got a clip to play to your advertiser. I got a podcast about X. Want to sponsor it? It's very different than I got a podcast about X. Here's my segment on AM Northwest.
Online, there are ad selling firms that if you want to buy, if I want to buy podcast listeners, I can go there. Is there a best firm that a podcast maker can go to place ads for them, or should you just go shoe leather and call your own advertiser?
I would go shoe leather, but
okay.
I have the Grammar Girl. How did she get so many listeners so quickly? Did it just happen? Was it just a word of mouth?
Early, charming as hell. Great content.
Mm-hmm.
Short. Easy to consume. Right place, right time. But I've never met anybody who works harder at this than Mignon. I mean, she is one. There's actually they finally launched the Podcast Hall of Fame, and I said, if Mignon isn't one of the initial inductees, you're a sham. And they brought her in, and she deserved it. So, right place, right time. But she's wonderful. One of my favorites. In the space. So the thing is, it's
the shoe leather answer was home.
It's chicken. It's chicken and egg. I love the selling it ahead of time. Like, this is what season one's going to cost. Sell it ahead of time, but have some credibility to sell it with. Just being in iTunes isn't credibility, especially with it being so easy to get credibility somewhere else. Get on another show.
Thank you.
Prize, what about? Thanks a lot.
Cards.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you.
That was really,
Thank you,
really
everybody.
It's only my obsession for the last decade, so thanks for providing me my therapy.
Tracy, what is in the room now?